As a lawyer, one of the things that frustrates me is when people try to take advantage of the law to do something unfair. What has really gotten me angry is hearing about people trying to use the coronavirus crisis to try to get all of their spouse's money in a divorce. I explain what they are doing and how to fight it in this episode of the Ontario Family Law Podcast. I'm John Schuman, a certified specialist in family law in Ontario. I'm also a mediator, arbitrator, and collaborative lawyer. This podcast is a companion to my book, Guide to the Basics of Ontario Family Law, which is available as an ebook or as a paperback. In a previous episode, I went over what happens when assets increase significantly after separation, and the separated spouses want to share in that increase, and when they don't. Unfortunately, due to COVID-19, we are facing the opposite situation, with people's RSPs and other investment savings plummeting in value. Even with the courts closed, I have heard of several instances where a spouse is making legal claims to try to get all of what their spouse has left. There may be some situations where that is the proper result, but in most it is not. This is not a concern unique to COVID-19. It is also a concern whenever the economy takes a downturn. It was also a problem in 2008 and 2009. I will explain how this happens and how to avoid it, as often it really is a scam. In another previous episode, I explained how property division works after marriage. There is no property division for common law couples under Ontario's Family Law Act. But to summarize and simplify what was in that episode, with some exceptions, married couples share the increase in their net worth from the date of marriage to the day they separate. That makes those two dates very important. With the possible exception of matrimonial homes, married spouses start counting how much they have and really how much what they have is increasing in value from the date of marriage. For the purposes of property division under Ontario's Family Law Act, they stop considering their increase in net worth on the day they separate. But in these troubled times, that same law means that they stop counting any decrease in their net worth on the date of separation too. The value of what a spouse owns before the date of marriage and after the date of separation don't matter. All that matters is what they had on those two dates, and that is how this scam can work. Ontario's family law recognizes that spouses do not have to physically separate, meaning one spouse walking out of the home for the spouses to be separated. The law recognizes that spouses can live separate and apart under the same roof. The law says that when the spouses move apart is not necessarily the important date for property division. The date that is important is when they stop living together as husband and wife, even if they continue to reside together under the same roof. That gives at least one spouse a big incentive to say the marriage was over and the parties stopped living as husband and wife before the COVID-19 crisis hit. It gives an incentive to say the marriage ended before the value of their spouse's assets plummeted, and to say that they were just sharing the same space as co-tenants, not as spouses anymore. To illustrate the advantage this gives, consider a situation where one spouse had $500,000 in investments but no other real assets on January 1st, 2020, and the other spouse had very little. By the end of March, those investments have fallen to $250,000 in value, and the stress of being isolated together in the home means that one spouse walks out. But that spouse with no assets does not want to share in $250,000. That spouse wants to share in $500,000. So that spouse says that they separated, stopped living like spouses, on January 1st when the investments were worth $500,000. Under Ontario's Family Law Property Scheme, that means that the spouse would be owed an equalization payment of half the assets on January 1st, $250,000, or all that their spouse has right now. That is an extreme case. Most won't have results that bad, but it illustrates the point. Of course, the opposite is also true. If the spouses had a big fight on New Year's, they never got along afterwards and stopped living like spouses then, the spouse with the investments has a big incentive to try to reconcile the relationship, even briefly, while the investment values have cratered. Because if the spouses rekindle their relationship, even for a couple of days or nights, the date of separation becomes that last date, and they share in the low value of the assets. That could be a big help, particularly if everyone's investments rebound after the crisis. The law is not so crazy as to allow one spouse to pick the date of separation that benefits him or her most. If the parties cannot agree, it is a judge or family arbitrator that decides. And with so much money potentially at stake, there is a clear incentive for one spouse to lie or stretch the truth. So judges try to look at the facts objectively and ask themselves, when would an objective person who knew the couple say the relationship was over? In determining that, it is not just when the couple stopped having sex or when one spouse started having an affair. Some relations recover after that. The judge or arbitrator looks at things like when the spouses stop eating together, when they stop going out on vacation together, when they stop showing signs of an affection for each other, when they stop referring to each other as spouses, when they took off the wedding rings, and possibly many other factors. Determining when spouses separated in these difficult circumstances can be open to argument and can be very dependent on the facts of an individual case. Since there can be a lot of money at stake, it is important to get in touch with a lawyer who can give you some advice based on the specifics of your situation. The lawyer can advise what the best thing for you to do in your situation is. It can be important to speak to a lawyer before you walk out to determine when might be the best time to walk out, or even if that even matters anymore. It is possible that the lawyer's advice could save you thousands, even hundreds of thousands of dollars and help you avoid this scam. If you need some more general family law guidance, or you need to understand Ontario's family law matters better so you can make better decisions, or if you need to better understand your options to preserve your money after separation or in divorce, or if you need some tips for how best to make those difficult decisions during these troubled times, get a copy of my book, Guide to the Basics of Ontario Family Law. You can access it immediately on the iBookstore, on Amazon for the Kindle version, or you can download it for Kobo. Amazon can deliver the paperback version directly to your doorstep. You can also get a lot more Ontario family law information on www.schumannlaw.ca. Not only are there hundreds of pages of family law information and links, there are links where to get my book and links to reach my office to meet with either me or one of my colleagues. Because it is always best to get a lawyer who can give you expert advice that is specific to your situation. In addition to my website, keep up to date on family law and children's law issues by liking my Facebook page, following me on Twitter at @SchumannFamilyLaw, and finding me on LinkedIn. Of course, please also subscribe to my YouTube channel and get the audio versions of the Ontario Family Law podcast on iTunes, on SoundCloud, or at www.schumannlaw.ca. Thanks for participating in this podcast. Stay safe, and we will get together again soon.